Sorry, I had my microphone muted there. Sorry while I was listening to you. It really means a lot to hear you say that, and I'm really touched by it. And thank you. And I guess it shows I'm doing my job properly if people say that. And I get mail from people who say similar things that you say. And so I feel my work is important. And I promise you I will carry on. I will always put a very anarchic and resistance edge to my filmmaking, because I think that's what the world needs right now. And the work I do is as much personal to me, and doing what I feel is right for me as it is for everyone else. And I'm just very lucky that what I feel is right for me in terms of being independent and thinking for yourself is also what it seems that the world needs. And coming back to the earlier videos with Danny, what we set out to do was just the only mission statement was to lower fear and raise love. But what I found from rewatching the films and editing them was the way we freed people from the shackles in their brain was if you show them that all authority is absurd and ridiculous and quite funny, then they'll actually start to question other hierarchies in their lives. And once you show that, you know, the kind of arbitrary laws of the state or the police are ridiculous and very funny, and that people get thrown in jail for using megaphones. And the megaphone is the 21st century assault rifle, I think. And it's propaganda pure, because you're never going to hurt someone or kill someone, an innocent bystander with a megaphone. At the very worst, you'll offend them, and they'll report you to the police, and you get thrown in jail for saying something outrageous. But yeah, I mean, like Derrick, I always ask myself, why don't I take it to the next level? Why don't I start organizing? I guess it's fear of infiltration, that if I had a kind of organized movement, there would be a very strong government desire to infiltrate it. I can see how it's very difficult to get even 3 people to agree on something, and I'd hate for it to descend into politics and infighting if we had, say, 100 people trying to organize something. And someone asked me the other day, they said, would you like to be king of the world or dictator of the world? And I said, no way, I want to be a freelance advisor to the world with the opportunity to walk away at any moment. And so the main part of my work is to show people just how ugly the will to power, the desire for power can make things. And if people have no desire for power over others, if they have anarchy in their heart, if they are spiritual anarchists, then I think they will shine and other people will appreciate it a lot. And I will always stick to my anarchy. And it's a reflection of 2 things. I guess it's firstly a desire for how I wish the world to be in the future, when everyone is of a sentient level where we don't need hierarchies. But it's also, I think, a subconscious reflection of how I think the world in a way truly is. I don't think anyone is actually in charge. I think it's one giant chaotic system, but what is actually in charge is ignorance and hate and stupidity, and those are our biggest enemies, I think, because if we, for example, I don't know, managed to stop the chief executive officer of BP from doing his job through some scandal, he would get replaced by the next robot drone. But if we can show people just how power and things are ridiculous and so forth, then they will kind of not want to buy shares in BP. Oh yeah, one last thing, I forgot to mention this to Derrick, which once we were talking about things to do. I'm a big believer in the idea that if you're going to pay tax, it should be voluntary taxation, that unless taxation is voluntary, you are a slave to the government. If they will take it without any choice, for example, they invaded Iraq and Afghanistan and now they're bombing the shit out of Libya, but taxation has to be voluntary, because then if you withhold your tax, your government needs to start doing what the people want. But it's much more complicated than that, because as we both know, 70% of the people actually support warfare, and they're so fucked up from their own childhood that they want blood and anger and gore and death. And Derrick talks about this in his book very openly, about abusive relationships and bad parenting, and how that does lead to kind of mirrors of that throughout life. So, no man, thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, do you have any last piece of advice on people to just, I guess, learn to, I don't know, I don't want to like throw out a giant monologue here, but it's very important for me to hear that other people who are in their positions of quote unquote power because of when the grassroots arise, sometimes some sprouts come up really high, and you seem to be one of them, and you keep your ego at a minimum for the most part. I've noticed, and I think you should be honored for that as well. But I guess the point I'm really trying to get at is there anything that you specifically believe that we can do to help people start becoming more leaders of themselves, so that they have the ability to then stand up for doing what is right? I mean, I think a lot of people are so afraid to even be a leader that they just wind up following all the time. And how do we give them that courage to stand up and do it themselves?
Sure, no, that's a very, very good question. And luckily I've got an answer which is verifiable because I've put it all on the internet. It makes me chuckle because you've just raised something in my head which is quite funny. That when I started doing Love Police, and I still get these rumors now, many people watch the videos and say, oh my God, how does he do that? He must be an agent. He must be MI5 or MI6 or Illuminati or CIA. Look at what he does, and so forth. And what people are mistaking there is, actually what people need to realize, and this is my inspiration, this is the answer, is that I got ejected from the finance world and was like, fuck, what am I going to do with my life? And I'd never made a film before. I'd never really put stuff on YouTube except maybe a couple of old clips from my camera phone. And I just went out there one day, bought a camera, met Danny, and started doing it. And I think ideas are very cheap in this world, and it's actually doing it which is really difficult. I remember 2 years ago, I was an absolute nobody. Nobody in the resistance or the truth movement or whatever we call it knew who I was. And I just started doing it, and I was much more of the thought that content is more important than post-production. So yeah, I'm not the world's greatest editor, but I think the footage speaks for itself. So just start doing it. That's the only thing that's stopping you achieving your dreams, is that kind of not doing it. I know it sounds so simplistic and so simple, but just do it. Just go out there and start doing what feels right to you, and then that will evolve and spawn other things. And I'm at the point now, 2 years later, where, yeah, like as you say, I'm very lucky. I have a profile. I can put ideas out there, and it'll be watched by many people, many more than when I started. And I just want to let all the listeners know that what's key here is tuning to your own heart and putting your energy out there hard. It doesn't need to be by a camera. It doesn't need to be by being a writer like Derrick. You don't need to be good on the megaphone. But every single person is a human being and is able to look at the world and say, that's fucked, this is fucked, that there is fucked. And you can do something about it. So we don't need another Love Police. Well, I'd love everyone to be able to do this, but you don't need to mimic what I do. Just find out what it is you do. And remember, this is very important, that for the first 6 months of doing Love Police, it was very small. I only had a couple thousand subscribers. But I didn't give up hope because I knew it was right for me. So if you don't get recognition, if you don't basically create a wave straight away, keep at it. It's taken me 2 years to turn my life around from office-obedient drone working in a high-rise glass and metal cage to being a free human being, well, as much as I can be, that doesn't pay tax, that doesn't vote, that doesn't, obey others. So remember, you can't change your life overnight. Well, you can, but what I'm trying to say is if you're going to change your life and put it on a different path, it takes a bit of time. So don't, as they say, good things come to those who wait. So patience, my friend, is a virtue.